breaking the rules. I've been enforcing them.
Stop! Step away from my child now.
Mom, drop it. You're under investigation.
She thought she had power. She did know she sprayed the district attorney's son.
My 4-year-old son was playing quietly at the park, holding his toy car and talking to himself. He wasn't yelling, he wasn't bothering anyone, and he wasn't breaking any rules. He was just a small child enjoying the afternoon. Then HOA Karen walked over. She started complaining about noise and HOA rules, even though this wasn't even an HOA area. She pointed at my son and raised her voice, telling him to move. My son looked confused and scared. He didn't understand why a grown woman was angry at him. I stepped forward to speak. I didn't get the chance. Karen suddenly pulled out a chemical spray and used it. My son screamed and dropped his toy. He grabbed his face and started crying loudly, shouting, "Help me, Mummy! Help me!" Parents gasped. People rushed toward him. Someone yelled for help. Karen stood there acting calm, saying she was handling a problem, like hurting a child was part of her authority. But Karen had no idea, not even for a moment, that the woman pushing through the crowd toward her is the district attorney. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me where you're watching from. And hit subscribe for more stories where the bad guys always regret their choices. The sound my son made after the spray hit his face is something I will never forget. It wasn't just crying. It wasn't the sharp wail of a scraped knee or the startled sob after a fall. It was raw panic, the kind that comes from sudden pain mixed with pure confusion. His little hands flew up to his face as if he could wipe the burning away, his fingers trembling as he screamed for me again and again. "Mummy, help me! It hurts!" His toy car slipped from his fingers and rolled slowly across the pavement, coming to rest against the leg of a nearby bench. No one noticed it stop. Every adult in the park was staring at my son, time fractured. For a split second, no one moved. Parents froze mid-step. Conversations cut off halfway through words. Even the birds seemed to go quiet, as the reality of what had just happened struggled to catch up with everyone watching. Then everything happened at once. "Oh my God!" someone shouted. "She sprayed him." Another voice yelled, "Get water. Get water now." I dropped to my knees beside my son, pulling him against my chest as he thrashed and cried, his small body shaking violently. My heart slammed so hard it felt like it was trying to escape my ribcage. I fumbled for my water bottle, my hand shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. "It's okay," I whispered, though nothing about this was okay. "I've got you. I've got you." I poured water gently over his face, trying not to panic, trying not to make it worse. His cries hitched as the water ran down his cheeks, mixing with tears. "It burns!" he sobbed. "Why did she do that?" I didn't have an answer. I didn't trust my voice not to break if I tried to speak. Around us, parents closed in, forming a loose circle. A woman tore open her diaper bag, handing me wipes. A man stepped in front of us instinctively, putting his body between my child and the woman who had hurt him. Karen took 2 steps back, not because she was afraid, but because she was annoyed. "Everyone needs to calm down," she said sharply. I handled the problem. The words felt unreal. A father near the swings stared at her in disbelief. "You sprayed a 4-year-old. Karen sighed, as if he were exhausting her. He was making noise. Someone had to step in. "He's a child," a woman shouted. Karen folded her arms. "Children need discipline. Parents today don't do their jobs." Phones came out then, not sneakily, not quietly, openly. People started recording her without caring if she noticed. And she did notice, but instead of backing down, she lifted her chin higher. "I'm enforcing standards," she said loudly. "If parents won't control their kids, someone has to..." My son buried his face into my shoulder, sobbing harder as another wave of pain hit. His cries grew hoarse, his little chest hitching as he struggled to breathe between sobs. I stood up slowly, holding him tight. "Back away from my child," I said, my voice dangerously calm. Karen turned toward me, irritation flashing across her face. "Control him next time." That sentence detonated something inside me. Before I could respond, the crowd shifted, not away from her, for someone else. I felt the movement before I saw it. People stepping aside, heads turning, space opening. A path formed through the middle of the park like an invisible line had been drawn. I pushed forward, my steps steady now, my focus razor sharp. Karen looked around, confused for the first time. "What is everyone doing?" she snapped. I stopped a few feet in front of her. You assaulted my son, I said quietly. She scoffed. And who are you supposed to be? I met her eyes. I'm the district attorney, I said. The park went silent. Not shocked silence. Final silence. Karen laughed once. A short, brittle sound. But it died halfway through when she saw the faces around her. No one was backing her up. No one was looking away. That doesn't mean anything, she tried. It means everything, I replied. Sirens wailed in the distance now, growing louder by the second. My son's crying finally began to slow as the pain eased and exhaustion took over. He clutched my shirt weakly, his face red and wet, his eyes swollen. Am I in trouble? He whispered. I kissed the top of his head. No, I said softly. You did nothing wrong. Karen took a step back. For the first time since she walked into that park, she looked uncertain. And for the first time since my son started screaming, I knew she would never forget this moment, because she didn't just spray a child. She sprayed the child of the woman who would make sure the law answered back. The scream didn't sound like normal crying. It ripped through the park like something torn open. Every conversation stopped mid-sentence. Parents turned at the same time, heads snapping toward the sound with the same instinctive fear. That's not okay, that's not normal. Birds scattered from the nearby trees. A soccer ball rolled to a stop near the grass, forgotten. My son dropped to his knees. His toy car clattered against the pavement and spun uselessly away, but he didn't look for it. Both of his hands flew to his face as he screamed again, louder this time, his small body folding inward like he was trying to protect himself from something invisible. It burns, he cried. Mummy, it burns, help me. The words shattered something inside me. I ran. I didn't remember standing. I didn't remember crossing the distance between us. One moment I was frozen in disbelief. The next I was on my knees, pulling him into my arms as his screams shook against my chest. His face was red already, angry, inflamed, tears streaming uncontrollably. He clawed at his eyes, his nose, his cheeks, unable to understand what had just happened or why it hurt so badly. It's okay, I said, though my voice didn't believe it. I've got you. I've got you. My hands shook so badly I could barely open my water bottle. Someone else thrust another one toward me. Then another. Water! Use water! A man shouted. Rinse his eyes! A woman cried. I poured gently, terrified of making it worse, whispering to my son over and over, anchoring him with my voice because I didn't know what else to do. It hurts, he sobbed. Why did she do that? I had no answer. Around us, parents surged closer, forming a protective circle without being asked. Strollers were pulled back. Children were ushered behind legs. Someone knelt beside me, offering wipes. Someone else called emergency services, their voice tight with controlled panic. And then there was Karen. She stood a few steps away, arms crossed, face tight with irritation. Not fear, not regret. Irritation. Everyone needs to calm down, she said sharply, as if she were annoyed by the noise more than anything else. I handled the problem. The words didn't register at first. A father near the swings stared at her. You sprayed a child. Karen sighed loudly, rolling her eyes. He was making noise. The sentence hit the crowd like a slap. He's 4, a woman whispered, horrified. He was just playing, someone else said. Karen shifted her weight and gestured dismissively. That's irrelevant. Noise is noise. My son screamed again as another wave of pain hit, his fingers digging into my jacket. His cries were hoarse now, raw from panic and burning. I stood up slowly, holding him tight, back away from my chi. LD, I said. My voice was steady, but only because everything inside me was locked down tight. If I let myself feel what I wanted to feel, I wouldn't be able to stop. Karen looked at me like I'd inconvenienced her. Control him next time, she snapped. The park erupted. What is wrong with you? You assaulted a baby. Who do you think you are? Phones appeared everywhere, raised openly now, not hidden. Karen noticed, but instead of backing down, she straightened her shoulders. I'm enforcing rules, she said loudly. Parents today don't discipline their kids. A man shouted. This isn't an HOA park. Karen waved him off. Rules apply everywhere. My son's cries finally began to slow, not because he felt better, but because exhaustion was setting in. His body trembled against mine, small hiccuping sobs replacing screams. I pressed my forehead to his hair. "You're safe," I whispered. "You're safe." I didn't know if it was true yet. Karen looked around, sensing the shift in the crowd, the anger, the disbelief, the way no one was agreeing with her anymore. For the first time, she seemed unsure which direction to push. Then the crowd parted, not away from her, for someone else. I felt the movement before I saw it, people stepping aside instinctively like they understood something was coming. I adjusted my grip on my son and moved forward through the opening, my heart pounding with a different kind of clarity. Now. Karen turned, confused. "What is everyone doing?" she demanded. I stopped directly in front of her. "You assaulted my son," I said quietly. She scoffed. "And who are you supposed to be?" I looked her straight in the eyes. "I'm the district attorney," I said. The park went dead silent, not shocked silence. Final silence. Karen laughed once, a sharp, brittle sound, but it died halfway when she saw the faces around her. No one was looking away. No one was backing her. "You. Pete, that doesn't mean—" she started. "It means everything," I replied. Sirens wailed in the distance. My son stirred weakly against me, his eyes swollen, his voice small. "Mummy, am I in trouble?" I kissed the top of his head. "No," I said. "You did nothing wrong." Karen took a step back. And in that moment, before the police arrived, before the statements, before the consequences, something fundamental changed. The scream that froze the park hadn't just stopped play. It had exposed cruelty, and everyone there knew it. Karen didn't retreat. That was the first thing everyone noticed. She didn't apologize. She didn't look shaken. She didn't even look uncertain. She stood there in the middle of the park, as if she were the only adult in charge, her posture stiff, chin lifted, eyes sharp with irritation rather than fear. The cries of a 4-year-old echoed around her, and instead of reacting with concern, she reacted the way someone does when they feel inconvenienced. "Everyone needs to calm down," she said again, louder this time. Her voice cut across the park like a command. Parents stared at her in disbelief. A few people shook their heads, muttering under their breath. Someone swore quietly. Phones stayed raised, recording every word, every movement. Karen noticed the cameras. She didn't like them, but instead of backing away, she leaned into it. "I handled a problem," she said firmly. "That child was being disruptive." The word child came out flat, stripped of anything human. My son whimpered against my shoulder, his cries softer now but still desperate, his breathing uneven as he tried to calm himself. His small fingers twisted into my shirt like it was the only solid thing left in the world. "It burns," he whispered again, his voice raw. I felt my grip tighten around him. A man near the benches stepped forward. "You sprayed a 4-year-old with chemicals." Karen turned. D on him instantly. "I used a deterrent." "A deterrent?" a woman echoed. "On a toddler?" Karen rolled her eyes. "You're all being dramatic." That word, dramatic, hung in the air like poison. She gestured toward my son dismissively. He was making noise, loud, repetitive noise. "Parents are supposed to stop that." "He was playing," someone snapped. Karen scoffed. "Noise is noise." The crowd stirred, anger beginning to replace shock. "This isn't even an HOA park," another parent said. "You don't have authority here." Karen laughed, sharp and humorless. "Rules don't stop at invisible lines." My son shifted in my arms, his cries spiking again as another wave of pain hit. He squeezed his eyes shut and shook his head, as if he could make the burning disappear by force. "Why is it still hurting?" He sobbed. I whispered to him, rubbing his back slowly, counting breaths the way the pediatrician had taught me. "It's okay. It's going to stop. I'm here." Behind us, Karen kept talking. She always did. "This is what happens when parents don't discipline their children," she announced. "Everyone expects society to bend around bad behavior." A father shouted, "You assaulted a kid." Karen snapped back without missing a beat. "I corrected behavior." The word corrected sent a chill through the crowd. Someone yelled, "That's abuse!" Karen crossed her arms. "No, that's accountability." Phone zoomed in closer. Karen's eyes flicked toward them again, irritation deepening. "Stop recording me." "No," someone replied calmly. "We won't." Karen's lips pressed into a thin line. For the first time, her confidence wavered, not because she felt remorse, but because she realized she wasn't controlling the room anymore. She pivoted. If parents actually watched their kids, she said loudly, this wouldn't happen. I felt something snap inside my chest. I took one step forward, back away from my child. I said again, my voice low and steady. Karen looked at me like I was something unpleasant on her shoe. Then do your job next time. The crowd reacted instantly. That's enough. You're disgusting. What kind of person says that? Karen raised her voice over them. Everyone calm down. You're acting like I attacked him. A mother gasped. You did! Karen shook her head, laughing. Please, he's fine. My son whimpered again, his face still red, tears streaking down his cheeks. He's not fine, I said. Karen tilted her head, eyes narrowing. Are you a doctor? The audacity of the question drew a collective breath from the crowd. Before I could answer, another parent spoke up. My sister's a nurse. That stuff can cause serious harm. Karen waved her off. It was a small amount. That doesn't make it okay, the woman shot back. Karen's jaw tightened. You people are impossible. Sirens were louder now, still distant but approaching. Karen heard them. Her eyes flicked toward the sound, then back to the crowd. She straightened her shoulders again, trying to reclaim authority through posture alone. Good, she said. The police can sort this out. I'll explain. The confidence in her voice felt rehearsed, like she'd played this scene out before in her head. Authority arriving, listening to her, dispersing the crowd. She pointed at my son. That child was creating a disturbance. He was playing, someone shouted. Karen snapped. Children don't get special treatment. The words landed wrong, dead wrong. A hush fell over the crowd. Not silence born of fear, but the kind that comes right before people push back. That's not how the world works, a man said quietly. Karen scoffed. It's how it should. That was when the crowd shifted, not away from her. For me, people stepped aside instinctively, creating a clear path. I hadn't asked for it. They just moved, recognizing something. Changed. I adjusted my grip on my son and stepped forward into the space they opened. Karen turned, startled. What are you doing? I stopped a few feet from her. You sprayed my son, I said calmly. Karen rolled her eyes. And who are you supposed to be? I met her gaze and didn't blink. I'm the district attorney, I said. The park froze, not in confusion, in realization. Karen's smile faltered, just for a fraction of a second. That doesn't mean, she began, but her voice lacked its earlier bite. It means everything, I replied. The sirens were close now. My son shifted in my arms, exhausted, his voice small and unsure. Mummy, am I in trouble? I pressed my forehead to his hair. No, I said softly. You did nothing wrong. Karen took a step back, then another. For the first time since she walked into the park, she looked unsure. Not of the crowd, not of the cameras, but of herself, because doubling down only works when no one stands up. And now, everyone was. The crowd moved before I did. That was the strange part. No one announced it. No one shouted instructions. There was no signal, no command. One moment people were packed tightly together, voices overlapping in anger and disbelief, and the next, bodies shifted instinctively, stepping aside, opening space the way water parts when something solid pushes through it. I felt it happen more than I saw it. A subtle change in pressure, a widening of air in front of me. Parents moved their children back. Adults turned sideways. Someone reached out and gently pulled a stroller out of the way. The shouting didn't stop all at once, but it softened, like the volume had been turned down. Karen noticed. Her eyes darted left, then right, irritation flashing across her face as she realized the attention wasn't centered on her anymore. What are you all doing? She snapped. This doesn't concern you. No one answered her. I adjusted my grip on my son and stepped forward into the space that had opened. His small body was heavy with exhaustion now, his head resting against my shoulder, his breathing uneven but slowing. His face was still red, tears drying in streaks along his cheeks. One tiny hand clutched the front of my jacket, fingers curled tight like he was afraid letting go might make everything come back. Every step I took felt deliberate, measured, final. Karen turned fully toward me, annoyance sharpening her features. "Excuse me," she said, drawing herself up. "You need to keep your distance." I stopped a few feet away from her. "You sprayed my son," I said quietly. The words didn't need volume. They carried weight all on their own. Karen scoffed. "And who are you supposed to be?" The question came out the way she asked everything, dismissive, designed to shrink whoever stood in front of her. It was the same tone she'd used on parents, on witnesses, on anyone who dared question her authority. I didn't answer right away. I let the silence stretch. Around us, the park had gone eerily still. Even the children had stopped playing, their parents holding them close, eyes fixed on the scene unfolding in front of them. Phones remained raised, recording without shame or hesitation. "I'm the district attorney," I said calmly. The reaction was immediate. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. It was absolute. Karen's mouth opened, just slightly, then closed again. Her eyes flicked past me, scanning faces, searching for reassurance, for doubt, for anything that suggested this was just another bluff she could talk her way out of. She didn't find it. A murmur rippled through the crowd, low and controlled. "That's the Oh my God. She's done." Karen laughed once, a sharp, brittle sound that cracked in the middle. "That doesn't mean anything," she said quickly. "You're just trying to intimidate me." "No," I replied. "I'm stating a fact." Her posture shifted. Not much, but enough. The confidence she'd been wearing like armor began to slip. She straightened her shoulders again, clinging to it, trying to regain control through body language alone. "I was enforcing rules," she said loudly. "I had every right." "You assaulted a minor," I said, cutting her off. The words landed hard. Karen flinched. "You used a chemical spray on a 4-year-old child," I continued, "in a public park, with witnesses. On camera." Karen's jaw tightened. It was a deterrent, a man behind me echoed in disbelief. "That's not a thing," a woman snapped. Karen turned on them instinctively. "Stay out of this!" But they didn't move this time. They didn't lower their phones. They didn't back away. Because the crowd no longer belonged to her. It belonged to the truth. Sirens grew louder in the distance, the sound finally unmistakable now. Karen heard them. I saw it in the way her eyes flicked toward the street, then back to me. Her voice changed, not softer, but sharper. "You think this makes you untouchable?" she hissed. "You think your job protects you?" I looked down at my son. He stirred weakly, lifting his head just enough to look at me, eyes swollen and tired. "Mummy," he whispered. "Can we go home?" My chest tightened. "Soon," I said softly. "Very soon." I looked back at Karen. "My job doesn't protect me," I said evenly. "It protects him." Karen shook her head, laughing again, but the sound was hollow now. "This is ridiculous. You're overreacting." I took a step closer, not threatening, not aggressive, just close enough that she could no longer pretend this was abstract. "You don't get to decide what harm looks like," I said, "and you don't get to hurt a child and call it authority." Karen took an involuntary step back. The crowd noticed. The sirens were almost here. People began speaking more freely now, voices overlapping but no longer chaotic. "She sprayed him. I saw it. I have it on video. He was just playing." Karen looked around wildly, her control unraveling thread by thread. "You're all exaggerating," she snapped. "This is mob behavior." "No," someone replied calmly. "This is accountability." Police vehicles pulled up at the edge of the park, lights flashing blue and red across the faces of everyone watching. Officers stepped out, surveying the scene quickly, professionally. Karen turned toward them like a lifeline. Finally, she said, "These people are harassing me." An officer looked from her to my son, still in my arms, his face red and streaked with tears. "What happened?" the officer asked. Before Karen could answer, half a dozen voices spoke at once. "She sprayed him. He's 4. It's on video." Karen tried to interrupt, but the officer raised a hand. "One at a time." He turned to me. "Ma'am, I'm the district attorney," I said, "and that woman sprayed my child with a chemical irritant." The officer nodded once, face hardening. "Is the child injured?" "Yes," I replied. Karen's voice rose in panic. "This is favoritism." "No," the officer said flatly. "This is procedure." Another officer approached Karen. Ma'am, we need you to step back. Karen hesitated. For the first time since she walked into the park, she didn't immediately comply. I didn't do anything wrong, she said, her voice wavering. I was helping, the officer repeated himself, firmer now. Step back. Karen obeyed. The crowd watched in silence as the balance fully, irrevocably shifted. I felt my son relax slightly in my arms as paramedics approached, their presence calm and steady. One of them spoke gently to him, checking his eyes, his breathing, reassuring him in a soft voice. You're safe now, the paramedic said. My son nodded weakly. Karen stood, off to the side, arms crossed. But the posture no longer read as confident. It read as cornered, because when the crowd parted, it wasn't just making room for me. It was making room for consequences. And Karen finally understood. She wasn't in charge anymore. The park didn't calm down when the police arrived. It clarified. The shouting faded first, not because people were suddenly peaceful, but because they were done arguing. What came next was quieter and far more dangerous for Karen, structure. Officers spread out calmly, the way they always do when they walk into chaos without panic. One spoke to dispatch. Another scanned the crowd. A third knelt beside the paramedics who were already checking my son's eyes and skin, speaking to him softly, explaining every movement before making it. You're doing great, buddy, the paramedic said. I'm just going to look, okay? My son nodded weakly, clutching my jacket. Karen watched all of this with visible irritation. I told you, he's fine, she snapped. You're all overreacting. An officer turned toward her slowly. Ma'am, step back. I didn't do anything wrong, Karen insisted. I was handling a disturbance. The officer didn't respond to the claim. He simply repeated, step back. That difference mattered. Karen stepped back. Phones stayed up. Not a single one lowered. The officer nearest the crowd raised his voice, not loud, just clear. If anyone recorded what happened, please stay available. People didn't hesitate. I have it. I recorded from the bench. My camera caught everything. Karen's head snapped toward the voices. You can't use that. The officer looked at her. You don't decide that. Karen laughed sharply. This is ridiculous. But her laugh had changed. It no longer sounded confident. It sounded defensive. An officer approached me. Ma'am, can you tell me exactly what happened? I took a breath and spoke. Slowly, deliberately, the way I did in court. Clear, factual, controlled. My son was playing quietly. She approached him. She yelled. Before I could intervene, she sprayed him in the face with a chemical irritant. The officer nodded and wrote. Karen scoffed. That's your version. The officer didn't look up. You'll have your turn. Karen bristled at that. Witnesses were brought forward one at a time. A father spoke first. I was sitting on that bench. The kid wasn't bothering anyone. She walked up angry. A woman followed. She yelled at the child, then sprayed him. He screamed immediately. Another voice joined. I have video. An officer accepted the phone, glanced at the screen, then handed it to another officer. Karen crossed her arms tighter. That doesn't show intent. The officer finally looked directly at her. Intent is not required for assault. Karen's mouth opened, closed. Then she tried a different angle. I used a deterrent, she said, not a weapon. The officer's pen paused. A chemical spray, he clarified. Yes, Karen said defensively. For safety. For whose safety? He asked. Karen hesitated. The silence stretched. My safety, she said finally. The officer raised his eyebrows slightly. From a 4-year-old? The crowd murmured. Karen flushed. You're twisting my words. No, the officer replied evenly. I'm documenting them. More phones were collected. Videos from different angles. Different distances. Same sequence. Karen approaching. Karen yelling. Karen spraying. My son screaming. There was no ambiguity. Karen's shoulders sagged slightly as the realization set in, not all at once, but in small cracks. She tried to fill them with noise. This is harassment, she snapped. I know my rights. The officer nodded. Good. Then you know to remain quiet if you choose. Karen laughed again, too loudly. You can't seriously be doing this. Another officer approached with the canister sealed in an evidence bag. Ma'am, he said, is this the spray you used? Karen glanced at it. I don't know. Several people laughed, Not cruelly, but involuntarily. You were holding it, a man said. I watched you. Karen spun toward him. You shut up! The officer stepped between them. That's enough. Karen's composure fractured. I was helping, she shouted. Everyone here is out of control. No one responded. The officer turned to me again. Ma'am, would you like to press charges? I looked down at my son. He was quieter now, exhausted. His eyes were red, his cheeks still flushed, but the worst of the burning had passed. He leaned into me, thumb pressed into the fabric of my jacket, trusting me completely. Yes, I said. Karen froze. You can't, she snapped. This is personal. The officer shook his head. This is criminal. Karen's voice climbed higher. This is favoritism. No, the officer replied. This is evidence. He nodded to his partner. Ma'am, you are being placed under arrest for assault on a minor. The words landed like a physical blow. Karen recoiled. No. No, this is insane. The officer stepped closer. Turn around. Karen didn't move. I didn't do anything wrong, she shouted. You can't. Turn around, the officer repeated, firmer. She looked around wildly. At the crowd, at the phones, at the faces that had turned from curiosity to certainty. No one helped her. Slowly, stiffly, she turned. The cuffs closed with a sharp click. That sound echoed louder than anything else that day. Karen screamed as they secured her wrists, about lawsuits, about power, about how unfair this was. No one listened. The officer read her rights calmly, professionally, his voice steady over her protests. As she was led away, Karen twisted her head toward me, eyes burning with anger and disbelief. This isn't over, she spat. Me. Her gaze. It is for today, I said. She was placed in the back of the patrol car. The door closed. The park exhaled, phones finally lowered. People spoke quietly to one another. Parents hugged their children a little tighter. The paramedics finished their checks and nodded reassuringly. My son shifted in my arms. Mummy? He whispered. Yes, sweetheart. Is she gone? Yes, I said. She can't hurt you. He nodded, eyes fluttering closed for a moment from sheer exhaustion. As the police cars pulled away, one truth settled over the park like a final verdict. Stories can be twisted. Voices can be shouted down. Authority can be faked. But evidence doesn't lie. And today, it spoke louder than Karen ever could. The park looked different after everything stopped. Not physically. Nothing had moved, nothing had broken. But the air itself felt altered, like the space remembered what had happened and was holding it carefully, afraid to let it happen again. We sat on a bench far from the playground now. My son leaned against me, wrapped in my jacket, his small body heavy with exhaustion. His breathing had finally evened out, each inhale slower than the last. His eyes were swollen and red, lashes clumped together from tears that had dried on his cheeks. One hand rested loosely in mine. The other clutched his toy car, the same one he'd been playing with before everything went wrong. A paramedic knelt in front of him, speaking softly, never rushing. You're doing really well, she said. Your eyes might feel sore for a little while, but you're safe now. He nodded faintly. Can I go home? He asked. Yes, she smiled. Soon. Those 4 letters, home, meant everything. When the paramedics finished, they stepped back quietly, giving us space. Police officers were still nearby, finishing paperwork, but their presence felt distant now, procedural instead of urgent. The crowd had thinned. Parents had gathered their children and moved on, casting backward glances as they left, like they needed to reassure themselves that the danger had passed. My son shifted against me. Mummy? He whispered. Yes, sweetheart. Why did she spray me? The question landed softly, but it cut deep. I took a breath before answering, careful not to let my anger leak into my voice. She was wrong, I said simply. Sometimes, adults make very bad choices. He frowned, thinking hard. Was I loud? No, I said immediately. You weren't loud. You weren't doing anything wrong. He looked down at his toy car, pushing it slowly across the bench with his thumb. I was just playing, he said. I know, I replied, and that's exactly what you were supposed to be doing. He nodded, accepting that answer the way only young children can, without argument, without doubt, trusting it completely. That trust felt heavy in my chest, like a promise I had to keep forever. A breeze moved through the park, rustling leaves overhead. The playground equipment creaked softly as it swayed, empty now. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked. Normal sounds returning, one by one. I realized my hands were still shaking, not violently, just enough that I had to curl my fingers inward to steady them. My son noticed. "Mummy," he said quietly, "are you okay?" I smiled at him. "I am now," I said. He leaned closer, resting his head against my shoulder. His weight was familiar, comforting. For the first time since the spray hit his face, his body wasn't rigid with fear. We sat there for a long time. Long enough for the sun to shift lower in the sky. Long enough for the adrenaline to fade and leave behind the ache, physical and emotional, that always follows something frightening. Eventually, an officer approached gently. "Ma'am," he said, keeping his voice low, "everything is finished here. You're free to go. Thank you." I replied. He glanced at my son, then back at me. He was very brave. My son looked up at him. "I was scared," he said honestly. The officer nodded. "Being brave doesn't mean you aren't scared. It means you get through it anyway." My son considered that. Then he nodded too. As we stood to leave, my son hesitated, glancing back toward the playground, toward the spot where his toy car had rolled away earlier, toward the place where his afternoon had turned into something else entirely. "Can we come back another day?" he asked quietly. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "When you're ready." He squeezed my hand once. That was enough. The walk to the car was slow. I adjusted my pace to match his short steps, keeping him close to my side. Every few seconds he looked up at me, as if checking that I was still there. I always would be. Once he was buckled into his seat, he let out a long, tired sigh and leaned his head back. "Mummy?" he murmured. "Yes? Am I in trouble?" My heart broke a little all over again. "No," I said firmly. "You did nothing wrong, not even a little bit." He nodded, eyes fluttering closed for a second before opening again. "She was mean," he said. "Yes," I agreed. "She was... Is she gone?" "Yes," I said softly. "She can't hurt you." That answer finally let him relax. The drive home was quiet, not tense, not heavy, just tired. At home, I cleaned his face gently, careful not to hurt his sensitive skin. He changed into soft pajamas and curled up on the couch with a blanket while I made tea. The familiar sounds of the house, the kettle, the hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the floor, felt grounding in a way I hadn't realized I needed. He sipped his drink slowly. "Mummy," he said, "can I watch my cartoon?" "Yes," I smiled. "Anything you want." He leaned against the cushions, eyes fixed on the screen, his body slowly unwinding from the day. I sat beside him, one hand resting lightly on his back, feeling each steady breath. Later, when I tucked him into bed, he caught my hand before I could turn away. "Mummy," he whispered. "Yes, love. You came fast." I swallowed. "I'll always come fast," I said. He smiled faintly, already drifting toward sleep. As I stood in the doorway watching his chest rise and fall, I thought about everything that had happened. Not just the spray, not just the arrest, but the moment when the world could have chosen silence. It hadn't. People had stepped forward, phones had stayed up, truth had been spoken clearly and calmly, and my son, small, gentle, 4 years old, had learned something that no child should have to learn so early, but would carry with him forever, that his pain mattered, that his voice mattered, that adults don't get to hurt children and call it authority. The park would return to normal tomorrow. Children would play. Parents would talk. The afternoon sun would fall the same way across the benches. But for us, something had changed. Because a child went to sleep that night knowing he was safe, and a woman who thought rules made her powerful learned that the law does not protect cruelty. A child safe again. That was all that mattered.